you very much for joining us this afternoon. My name's Naomi Snell and I'm from PPP Taking Care, which is part of the AXA PPP Healthcare Group and also AXA Group. PPP Taking Care is one of the UK's leading telecare providers. For those of you that maybe haven't heard of us, you may know us by our previous name, which was AidCall. Dementia is very much an area of interest for PPP Taking Care and the AXA Group, and it's something we're constantly looking to for the future to see how we can help people live better lives, healthier lives, longer lives, but also remain at home for as long as possible. I'm joined today by Dr. Ellen Half-Davis from Aparito and Dr. Sina Hababi from Connectivity. I never pronounced that correct. Got it, super, thank you very much. Our plan for this 45-minute workshop is really to share with you how technology is changing and how it will help us to diagnose dementia at an earlier stage, but also support people living with dementia for much longer. We do hope that you come out of this workshop having learned something new. That's something I always personally want when I go into a workshop like this. So it's about learning something new, but also feeling inspired about some of the new technology that's coming along, that's being developed both in this country and across the world. Is it going to work? Yes. So, just to give you a bit of background to AXA, for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with us. Dementia research is something that we very much focus on within the AXA Group, and we've been doing this through our AXA Research Fund. It's a scientific charity that we set up to provide funds for academic research, and this could be across a variety of different topics and challenges that we face across the world. So far we've contributed 179 million euros to around about 531 research projects in 34 countries. So as you can see, we've touched on a number of different areas, but there's one particular example that I wanted to share with you which is relevant to the topic we're discussing here today, and that was a study conducted by the University of Edinburgh to investigate the potential connection between Alzheimer's and neurovascular alterations due to ageing. Bit of a mouthful. We have provided links, so if you're interested and want to see some of the research that we've done and some of the research that's been funded, links will be provided in the PowerPoint when you get sent that. We also run something called the Health Tech and New Award Programme, which is about supporting and promoting innovation in health technology. It's very much our belief that science should play a pivotal role in supporting developments going forward and the challenges that we face across the world. And this is very much about supporting those visionaries, people who have those ideas, helping those visionaries to bring their ideas to life and shape the future of healthcare technology. Now, there was one award that we ran last year in a particular category, and that was called Innovations in the Early Diagnosis of Dementia. Ellen and Sina were both finalists in that, and they join us here today and will be sharing with you a little later on the developments and their innovations in this field. So in terms of what's currently available, you're probably familiar with a lot of what I'm about to talk to you about. Some of it's been around for quite a while. There is also some technology that you're also probably familiar with, but maybe for a different purpose. Now, I don't plan to go into a great deal of detail about what we currently have available, because I think the really exciting stuff is what Sina and Ellen are going to be sharing with you shortly about what's in development and what's going to be coming up in the future. And it's probably fair to say a lot of what we have available today is really about supporting people that are living with dementia rather than the earlier diagnosis of dementia, because that has been the big challenge. There isn't that single test to diagnose dementia. It's more of a combination of tests and assessments and a visual input from clinical practitioners. But some of the things I just want to skim through with you and share with you are some technology that can be very helpful to some individuals. And I think the important thing I always highlight when I'm talking about technology, it's not right for everyone. It's not right for everyone's situation. So it can vary from individual to individual. The first one is the GPS, the Global Positioning System Alarm. This for me, is probably one of the best pieces of kit that's available at the moment. It allows people to live independently at home, but it also provides that safety net so they can continue to live their lives, move around, do their business, go shopping, go to the shops, go to the cinema. But it gives them that security blanket that actually, if they are in trouble, they can press the alarm themselves and the GPS will locate them. Or if they go outside their geofence, which is something the individual and the family can put in place, then the alarm will trigger. One thing that's often forgotten about with the GPS is actually it's very beneficial to mitigating and minimising emergency services intervention. You know, those panicked phone calls to 999. My dad went down the shops 4 hours ago and he's not back. I don't know where he is. So this is a really great piece of technology that can help with day-to-day living. Sensors. There are sensors galore. They can be connected to a telecare provider. They may be a recorded message. They could be an alert to a member of the family or a carer. And these sensors could be sitting on a door, a bed, a chair. They could be flood or temperature control sensors. And these are very much sensors that can identify if maybe someone hasn't got up in the morning when you would normally expect them to, or if the door is suddenly open at 2 o'clock, the front door is open at 2 o'clock in the morning, it can raise that alert. And again, that can be in a number of different ways. A recorded message, as someone mentioned earlier, that could frighten the life out of someone with dementia, with some people with dementia, but for others that might be appropriate. But so it's about creating those alerts to help mitigate and minimise any real risks. Reminder sensors. These could be motion, timed, or again via a telecare provider. And these could be reminding someone to maybe remember to close the front door, or have you shut the fridge? Have you turned the oven off? So they cook dinner at 5 o'clock, so you'd therefore maybe expect the oven to be turned off maybe at 6 o'clock, for example. So these are nice, gentle aids to help people to, maybe you're suffering with some of the memory loss, to help them remember to do very small things. Medication aids, been around for a long time, do what they say on the tin. Alarm dispensers, again, to remind someone to do something. ADL sensors, activity of daily living sensors, are a great way to be able to monitor both day and nighttime activity to get a really clear picture of that individual and their habits. And then it creates a trigger or alarm if someone's doing maybe something outside of their typical behaviour. Or, on the flip side, it can provide that reassurance that actually, nope, they're fine. They're up, they're moving, they're doing this, they're doing that, as expected. And then tablets and smartphones. I was interested, I commented to Ellen earlier as how everyone that was sitting here waiting for this to start, everyone had a tablet or a smartphone out. They're everywhere. You sit on the tube and everyone's got one out. These can still be a great piece of technology for someone who has dementia. But it's really only those that maybe were using it before. It's not something you would possibly give to my 91-year-old mother-in-law who's never even touched a mobile phone in her life. It's about being appropriate for that individual. But it allows these tablets and smartphones, again, allowing people to maybe set reminders, to play music, to look at the photographs, to look at past photographs, and remind themselves. Social interaction, whether it's doing Skype or whether it's on Facebook or wherever it might be, but it's allowing people to interact. As I mentioned at the beginning, there is also some technology that you're probably familiar with, but it's being used for a different purpose. The following probably sits somewhere, in honesty, between what's currently available now and what's in development at the moment, because many of these are being trialled, they're in their infancy. But I just wanted to give you a bit of a flavour of what's happening up and down the country with your colleagues in NHS trusts and local authorities, because I think it is about sometimes looking outside the box and looking at equipment technology that might already be there that can be used in a different way. And the first one is a smart meter research study that's being conducted by the Merseycare NHS Foundation Trust along with Liverpool John Moores University Hospital. With the rollout of smart meters, probably not quite as quick as the government would like, we are expecting soon to have a smart meter in every home. And what this research study is looking to do is to see if these smart meters can be actually used as a way to monitor, as a monitoring system to monitor an individual, and actually can they monitor health and progression of dementia and the disease. And the plan is very much to track their daily routines by measuring the usage on the via the electricity meter, to be able to flag any sudden changes, any changes that might indicate illness, a fall or a decline. They're starting this in October with 50 patients who are living all in their own home, and the plan is very much to test if this type of technology is going to work and is going to do what they hope it was going to do. And that's very much about earlier detection, to be able to intervene earlier and mitigate acute hospital admissions or emergency care home placements. If successful, the plan is to roll it out to another 1,000 patients, all living at home again, over 4 trusts. The Care Research Centre, which was mentioned this morning, part of the Imperial College, has also just now set up a £20 million fund to look at how can we build on existing technologies and integrate those into the home. What they've done is they've brought together scientists, engineers and doctors to look at this technology and look at what can we do to put this technology and help us firstly identify earlier dementia and then also manage situations. One of the things that they're very keen to do as part of this work as well is develop an EEG device, which is a little monitor that fits in the ear, which is able to monitor fluctuations in brain activity. And along with that, with sensors that may be in the house, is actually start to pick up and build a picture of behaviour. That will then, if something is not right or is out of the ordinary, that would then pick it up and trigger an alert to doctors or nurses or various clinical teams. And this would all be gathered by AI, so automatically all this information, this patient information that's pulling in, will be gathered by the AI. That would then flag those alerts. And again, it's about allowing interventions at an earlier stage to mitigate those crises at a later stage. The plan here is to, every 6 months, is to roll it out to another 50 patients, again for them to test in their own homes. So, and every single case study of those patients that have been tested with, they've all got different pieces of kit and different equipment, because again, it's about that individual and what's right for them. And then the last one is Robbie the robot, which I find quite fascinating. This is something that's been developed by Edge Hill University. It's a vision-based AI robot, and he does look like a robot, and he's been trained to recognise signs of dementia. He's currently able to spot 80 human actions and see any signs of aggression or depression. Now, what's fascinating about this is he's learnt it all from Emmerdale. Jeremy this morning mentioned Emmerdale and Ashley Thomas, the character that was diagnosed with dementia and then was living dementia. And what the robot has done is studied 65,000 images from watching Emmerdale, and is now able to process all of those images and be able to detect changes in mood, behaviour, activity, drinking, eating, medication. And what the robot's actually doing is something that we can't always do as humans, because we can't do, a clinician cannot be there 24/7. You may have a 5-minute consultation with someone. So what the robot's able to do is to pick up these sometimes little small changes in the behaviour, which might be indicating that actually there is possibly early onset dementia. The aim very much is for the Edge Hill University is that this will become a tool that doctors and GPs and carers can use to diagnose dementia. So it's about capturing that information now and using it in the future. My very last point, and I've always raised it because it's often a concern that many people have with technology, and it's often a valid one and still one that does need to be addressed. And that's the warning signs of consent, privacy, hacking. This is about complementing, not replacing humans. I think on the consent and the privacy side of things, valid questions that are being asked is, all this data is being collected. Where is it being held? Who's managing it? Is it going to be solved? And these are questions I think that still need to be addressed by some organisations. One particular organisation, Amazon, has recently had to address this because as they're moving now more into the healthcare market, particularly in America, they have just announced that they are now fully compliant with US healthcare data privacy. Because they just knew they weren't going to get any further forward on that. So it is something that does need to be looked at. Did want to raise it because it's probably the niggle that everyone's thinking about sitting here. Okay. Next bit, what we want to do, and this is the exciting bit, is talk about what's in development at the moment, what's happening and what are we going to see in the next couple of years coming through. Later we'll see what maybe is a little bit further along. So I'm now going to hand over to Sina, who's going to talk to you about developments at Connectivity.
Thanks, Naomi. Hi everyone, my name is Sina Habibi. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Cognitivity, spin out from Cambridge University, the real one, because apparently they made a fake one in the US recently. We have artificial intelligence solutions based on neuroscience to detect mental health disorders, in particular dementia and Alzheimer's. I'm sure you've heard a lot about the biggest healthcare challenge of 21st century. What I want to talk in particular is the crisis of diagnosis. 1 in 2 people never receive diagnosis. In the UK and US, we're talking about the most advanced healthcare systems in the world. And those who receive diagnosis, they receive it so late that they are disabled and their options limited. So last year, Alzheimer's Association published a report saying that if all people in the US with dementia today that they have not received diagnosis, if they receive diagnosis over their lifetime, 7.9 trillion. I repeat that, trillion US dollar can be saved. So there's a clear unmet need for diagnosing dementia. Why our diagnoses are so bad? It's because it's not changed since 1907. When we discovered the disease, Dr. Alzheimer's asked questions, memory questions from his patients. And today we're doing the same thing. And you can see you have inherent biases there. Precision is limited, it's language, education, and culture bias, but most importantly, it has learning bias. You ask memory questions from your patient, and then 2 years later, you ask the same question from them. Their situation might be deteriorating, but they can answer the question better than they did first time. Today, half of people should not be referred to secondary care, and this is because of the bad and crude assessment tools we have at primary care. So we have looked at this completely differently from everything else today. We have worked on something which is called image cognition, how we perceive images. When you look around yourself, your eyes work like camera, takes pictures, and your brain analyzes that information. That ability of the brain is affected by the disease a lot earlier. When we started this 6 years ago, we had a theory, but now multiple different centers in the world coming out saying that visual cortex is the first part of the brain affected by the disease. Our technology is platform. It can be delivered via different tools. At the moment, it's available via Apple iPads. I think there is a video here that you can see. This is the subject taking the test. Don't worry, it's too small to see. In my next slide, I will walk you through what happens there. So, in a course of 5 minutes, we show our patients 100 images. Every image is presented for a very short time in the middle of the screen, and then it disappears, and the patients are supposed to respond whether they've seen an animal inside the picture or not, as soon and as accurate as possible. With this, we build a profile of responses that we can compare with our historical data and say whether someone behaved similar to someone with a condition or not. Every image varies in their complexity. Some images have got a lot of information. For example, there's a bird in the corner of a jungle, so it takes a lot of time for the brain to analyze all the information and respond to it. And then there's a bear in the middle of the picture, a lot less information. There is a reason we've selected animals and patented this technology. Over millions of years of human evolution, we have evolved to respond sensitively to pictures of animals because we either had to run away from them or run after them. This is a picture of a brain, a representation of the picture of brain while patients are taking the test, putting in functional MRI. we show that during the course of the test, we get key and large parts of the brain activated. And this is very important because the brain cannot mask its problem for a long time, and we can detect it a lot earlier. If you look at the comparison with memory-based tests that focus on hippocampus, you don't have this large activity of the brain. And that's why our test is more sensitive to less deterioration. We can detect it a lot earlier than others. We use artificial intelligence to compare a test result that we collect from someone. That profile of responses is compared with every historical data we have in the past, but we have also built further AI technology into our test, in that we can draw information from electronic health records, from wearables, and combine all of that to give better sensitivity and selectivity to our test result, which is very important. We know our doctors are good in very, very different things, but using technology is not one of those. So we've not stopped innovating with our tests. We have tried to make this integration seamless and spreadable. So I'll walk you through what happens when someone goes to take our test. When someone books an appointment, our AI looks at their electronic health records, and if we realize there is this patient is at risk, the test is prescribed for them before they even see their GP. The test takes 5 minutes and doesn't require the healthcare professional. So the test is taken, and then the result goes on the screen of the GP with a very simple triage tool, whether to refer, whether to ask them to come back and take the test again, or they're fine and they can take the test next year. We are not in complementary with other technology. We can solve the problem of dementia. We have some very important advantages over other technologies available. Comparing to other cognitive tests, we are more sensitive, and because of using AI, we are more specific. But when you compare it to other biomarkers, such as imaging and blood biomarkers, we are less invasive. We're not invasive at all, and that makes it a very, very powerful tool for screening for dementia in wide scale, and also to monitor our patients while they are at home. And with that, I thank you for your time.
So thank you very much for the opportunity to join you today. I feel, pardon me, I feel a little bit of a fraud because I'm paediatrics by background and spent sort of 18 years developing drugs and designing clinical trials more in the paediatric space. But through that also became very heavily involved in the rare disease space and diseases such as Niemann-Pick C, Tay-Sachs, neuronopathic Gaucher disease, and some of those neurodegenerative disorders, while they sort of appear in childhood, have a lot of neurological involvement that I think translates well, and that's sort of the background to where our technology started and where our work is currently based. I obviously don't need to present to you as an audience these issues, but when we apply the challenges of getting these early diagnoses to the context of clinical trials, which is more my background, particularly as a regulator, we see that part of the problem or a significant challenge is that only 1 to 3% of a patient's experience is captured in electronic health records or during hospital appointments or appointments with the GP, which means that there's a huge amount of health data or insight into what's going on in the patient's life that's currently missed by those very snapshot, episodic time points that an individual spends with the healthcare professionals. And that's even more challenging when they possibly see a different GP or a different neurologist or a different registrar between all those consultations. And to add to that challenge, there are multifaceted or multitude of different subtle changes that can appear. So changes in voice and changes in speed of the gait and sleep patterns and memories. One of these alone is often not sufficient to provide an early indicator or a sort of strong enough diagnostic criteria. And in the work we're doing in rare diseases, where the presentation is also very heterogeneous in terms of presentation, but also heterogeneous in terms of rate of progression, we find that we need to combine the analysis of all of these together to put them into one indicator to allow for those early diagnoses. And again, learning from the rare disease, where diagnosis can often take 7 years to get. By the time a diagnosis is made, it's too late for available therapies to offer value, and there is a missed opportunity where the disease has progressed too much to be eligible for the inclusion criteria within clinical trials. And so we're looking at how we can combine all these different aspects and collectively evaluate them continuously in the home to develop one point of diagnosis, but also to be an outcome measure for clinical trials of the future. So our platform's called Atom5. It's a SaaS platform for a multitude of patient-generated data that's captured remotely and continuously along the aspects that I just talked about, so such as voice, memory, speech, and activity of daily living and walking patterns. So we have the technology engages with the patients in terms of having calls at certain times to ask certain questions and to engage with them in terms of voice, developing enough voice capture to do voice recognition, but also to analyze that voice in terms of individual changes. And then that is combined with the other aspects such as the wearables. And also from the wearables, we can look at increased heart rate that's not necessarily linked to physical activity, but possibly that stress of agitation or mood. And some of the tasks also linked to the WHO frailty assessment, where we do timed tasks and timed memory assessments. So actually the time that it takes for an individual to complete these different tasks while we're at the same time capturing their heart rate to see if they're getting more agitated with completing the tasks compared to what their heart rate would have been normally with physical exercise or while sat at home. And again, using all this cumulatively together as well as with their speech and with their sleep pattern to come up with one proxy indicator. It's downloaded on the patient's own handset, so I appreciate that possibly my father, who's 75, is not such a good avid tech user, but my mother at 72 is actually brilliant with her iPad. And I think as we sort of now move more and more towards a generation that's already ingrained with using this sort of technology, it'll become easier. We don't capture any patient's individual patient identifiable data, so we don't capture email, phone numbers, any of that sort of thing. It's all done anonymously via the QR code, and then the information sent to the physician that's referred them to us. And so we kind of try and avoid any of the risks of maintaining those patients' identifiable data. And then through utilizing some of the machine learning capabilities of integrating all these aspects together is where we're looking at the offer of early diagnosis for supporting, as I said, the clinical team, but hopefully for giving them the opportunity to enroll in clinical trials before the disease has progressed too far. So that's, Alice, thank you.
Okay, it's me again, but this time I'm talking about future of technology in mental health. Bit of a spoiler alert, there's not going to be true sci-fi information here. This is something probably you all know, but this is where I think we're going. So, as you all know, prevention is easier than reaction. In the slide here, you see that as the health deteriorates, the cost of care increases, and this is a very simple diagram, but the number is staggering to know that 20% of people generate 80% of the cost. And that's what I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes. This is one of my most favorite studies in the University of Wisconsin. Over 20 years, they look at a group of monkeys with calorie diet control and the ones without. The one on the right is the one under control of calorie, and the one on the left without. Some argue the one on the left is happier, but if we forget about appearances and look at the numbers, we can see that beyond age of 30, 50% control animals survived the age-related diseases such as diabetes, cancer, cardiovascular, and brain atrophy, whereas 80% of those who were on calorie restriction survived. So this is clear and obvious that we have obvious choices to make in order to have a preventative approach. Prevention is more possible today than ever before, and this is because our improvement in sensing, in wearable technologies, we can see what we are and where we are going. If I ask you to lose 5 kilograms in the gym or in the next 6 months, you probably lose 1 or 2, but you come back. Because your brain doesn't get rewarded, you get tired, you forget, and you lose your ambitions. But if I ask you to lose 200 grams in the next 7 days, you probably can do that. Your brain gets rewarded, and you can continue doing this behavior change, which is the recent behavioral economics idea, which is called nudge. So if I want to change your direction to a certain point, I should just give you little nudges and make sure that you see the differences in your day-to-day life in order to achieve that. Another breakthrough which makes prevention more possible today is artificial intelligence. We are producing vast amounts of data on a daily basis. We have the wearables, we have our electronic health records, we have lifestyle changes, we have our sleep patterns. We cannot analyze and understand that information ourselves. We need to apply artificial intelligence. And that's another missing part which has come to use today in order to make understanding where we are better. This is a pyramid that I look at for healthcare economy. As you can see, when you move from self-care or community care to secondary care, the cost of care increases. Today, patients are the most underutilized asset in this economy, but this is about to change, and this is about to disrupt the entire healthcare economy. We will put patients in the center of their care by showing them where they are with their health and how they can improve it by using the technologies I mentioned earlier. This will move us from a volume approach to a value approach, to a value creation-based system. This is a system which is based on each person receiving what works for them. We have 7 billion different types of bodies and 7 billion brains, but we still approach them in a general way, one-size-fits-all approach, but this is about to change. Now we can learn about everybody differently. Now we can learn about their bodies, learn about their brains, and give them what works for them. And this is the biggest change that is coming in healthcare, in my opinion. I often say there's this fear that these robots are going to take over and we are going to become all redundant. I don't think that will happen, at least in my lifetime. But I always say robots won't replace the doctors, but the doctors who don't use AI will be replaced by the ones who use AI. And that I can see it happening. Thank you very much.